Hello, beautiful soul family. Welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited for today's video. It is the second video in my abusive relationship experience series. And yes, this is going to be a whole series because there was honestly so much that I could not pack into the original video as it was already an hour long. I just felt like we need to break some of these things up and talk about some of these things in more detail. So today I'm going to be discussing a lot of the things that I noticed about my relationship and my ex and even myself after I got out of that bad situation. Because honestly, I had rose-colored glasses on for much of the relationship and I really was lying to myself. If I'm being completely honest, I did not want to face the reality of my situation because I was so in love and we were so connected. And what do you mean? We were going to be together forever, right? So once I was actually able to get out and leave this abusive situation, I was able to, with time and space, really see how much worse it really was. And I wanted to talk about this because, again, I want to encourage you or maybe have this video be a catalyst for you to wake up to your own situation if you are in a similar situation as mine. And also, if you have gotten out of this situation, I hope that this video serves as support and encouragement to you on your healing journey. And know you're not crazy, know you're not alone, know you weren't imagining things, and your feelings and your experiences were all valid. So I did discuss a lot of these things in the first video, but they weren't really clear to me until I got out of the relationship. My ex was very manipulative. He was always gaslighting me, and that was what the conditioning piece was, especially in the abuse cycle. Again, go check that video out for more context. I also realized he was a pathological liar. Like, he literally lied to me all the time and about everything big and small. And that was something I did not want to admit to myself at all, because he would also say how honest he was. But again, this isn't super about him. As I embarked on my healing journey, I started learning all sorts of buzzwords like narcissism and being a misogynist. And I realized that my ex really possessed a lot of those traits as well, which is not really surprising. This one was really hard for me to admit, but I realized once I was no longer being controlled by my ex and I was free to live my life the way I wanted, then I realized just how controlling he was, because he was way more controlling and manipulative than I thought he was. And what was really scary was to realize how much he attempted to isolate me from my friends and family, but it didn't actually work. That was actually an area where he didn't really exert dominance over me, or couldn't, because I had such a strong involved support system with both my friends, my social life, my work life, and my family, that he was not able to really isolate me in the way that both narcissists and misogynists tend to do with their partner. And upon further reflection, I really noticed that my ex was kind of the problem. He was the common denominator in all of the issues in his life. My ex would always have this narrative that he was the victim, that everything horrible in his life that had happened to him happened to him, and he had no control over it, and he had no control over himself or any of his actions that followed, which again, I talked about in my last video. But I really realized that the reason that he could never keep relationships with friends or coworkers, why he was always falling in and out with his family, it generally was not the other person, it was him. He was the problem. And this one took a long time for me to figure out, but he didn't meet my needs at all. And as I said before, I did not really know what my needs or my standards were when I entered into a relationship with this person. And so once I realized what my needs were, what I was really looking for in a partner during this healing phase, I realized that my ex didn't meet really any of my core needs, except for having that deep emotional connection that I really craved with someone, which is important, obviously, but that was not enough of a foundation to create a healthy environment and a strong partnership. And honestly, it was kind of sad to admit this. And again, there's no shade when I say this. This is just the matter of the fact. I felt like I wasn't good enough, but really, he wasn't good enough for me. Not because he was a worse person than me in that sense, or I was better than him, but he just literally did not and could not meet my needs. So that was a big game changer in my healing journey and learning to accept myself and love myself and realize I really am enough. And this one should be very obvious, but I did not label his behavior as abuse until I started my healing journey. I did not realize it was abusive. I did not realize that it wasn't normal. I mean, I knew it wasn't normal. I shouldn't say that. But he conditioned me to believe that it was just kind of part of the package deal with him. Like if I loved him, then I had to put up with this treatment, and his love would make up for it in some way at some point. And once I realized that I had been abused for years, I got really, really embarrassed and ashamed of what had happened because, again, this is very typical abuser and victim mentality, or rather, victim mentality in my situation. But I thought it was my fault. I thought that I had allowed him to treat me this way. And again, in my first video, I talk about how, because of my own unhealed wounds, I did unknowingly enable his behavior. But it's different. There's a difference between enabling and deserving that kind of treatment, but I still felt like it was my fault because I had allowed it to happen to me, when really I was just doing the best I could. I didn't know what I was honestly doing. I was way out of my league with his PTSD and his other mental health conditions. And yeah, I just didn't really know any better. And again, I didn't have enough self-worth and value to leave that situation until I finally did. And originally, I had thought he was a very safe person. Once we got out of our relationship, I realized he was such an unsafe person, very volatile, very all over the place, unpredictable, largely in part to his untreated, unmanaged mental health conditions, such as PTSD. I also realized that our relationship was really not based on anything at all other than mutual attraction and really intense, fast emotional connection and trauma bonding. He was not my soulmate. We were not meant to be together, because somebody who abuses you is not your soulmate. I'm sorry, they're not. And finally, I realized that I was always hiding everything from everyone around me and defending my ex to everyone in my life. I, again, had the rose colored glasses on. I did not want to face the reality of the severity of the situation. And so I would always make excuses for my ex if he was having some mental health issues that day and couldn't come to a family function, or when my friends would comment, wow, he texts you a lot. Like, aren't you guys together all the time? I would just make excuses. And I was just constantly like fueling and feeding into my ex's victim mentality. And again, enabling his behavior so he'd be fully dependent on me and taking that responsibility piece for his well-being. And so I didn't want anybody to know how bad it was, again, because I knew deep down this wasn't right. And I was very embarrassed by it, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. And so I would just always be my ex's biggest advocate and cheerleader and really downplay everything that was actually happening because I didn't want to face it. All right, that's it for today's video. I really hope that this encourages you that it is okay if you are in or have been in a similar situation as me, where you are being verbally, mentally, emotionally abused, and you didn't see all the signs. You didn't see all the underlying issues until you got out of it, or if you're still in it and you're unable to see these things, it's okay. Part of the healing journey for me was giving myself grace to realize that I just was in over my head. I was doing the best I could. I was blinded by love for sure, blinded by the potential and chasing the wrong things in a relationship. And it's okay that I didn't recognize all these things as red flags. I just didn't know better then, and I do now. And that's what's most important. So if you're on a similar journey, just be sure to give yourself grace, give yourself time to process, forgive yourself for what you didn't know, and just remind yourself that you were doing the best you could in that situation. And the best part of this is you can leave that situation anytime. If you are still in an abusive relationship, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to take off those rose-colored glasses, see things for how they truly are, and get out of that relationship as soon as possible. And if you have already gotten out of that relationship and you are healing and recovering from it, again, just know that this is part of the process, and recognizing the things afterwards that I couldn't while I was in it was really beneficial and helpful to my healing. It brought up a lot of stuff. I had to work through a lot of stuff. I had to forgive myself for a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, I was able to move through those things and move past those things. And now I am crystal clear on what I want in a partner. I am crystal clear on my relationship with myself. I love myself. I value myself. I do not put up with a fraction of what I put up with my ex-boyfriend. I am so much better at seeing red flags. I've identified what my personal red flags are, my deal breakers are. Like I said, what I'm looking for in a partner. I have actual standards now. So again, this is all just part of the process, and I hope that this video serves to encourage you and motivate you in your own relationship healing journey. And as always, you are not alone. I'm here for you. I'm rooting for you, praying for you. And finally, God loves you more. God is the big piece of the puzzle in the healing journey. And I have so many videos on relationship with the Lord. So if you're interested, check those out. So that's it, friends. I will see you in the next video.